Yo, you already know who it is. Asharenu, we back in this bit once again. Now, originally, I had a video request about, I believe the question went as, can a madam or a madame be a pimp? Are there any differences, so on and so forth? So originally, this video was going to be called that. However, as I started to do the research for the video, because I didn't just want to, come out of my mouth with recklessness, then let me document this so it can be bigger and grander, and we can actually get to the origins of this thing, because most people don't know. I don't think it's ever been discussed. So I may be the first one to really lay it down in order, so we can truly get an understanding of where this comes from and why it's still here today, why it's not going anywhere, so on and so forth. So this is a bigger video to a video request that was asked. So before we get into it, we're going to allow people to come in, so of course, we're going to channel in the spirits, because this is, this is very dear to my heart, of course. Let me give everybody a shout out. What's up, Jay Flower? What's up, Golden Appeal? Hold on, I'll get everybody in just a second. Let me just light this up. So what's up, was it Lena Wu? Lena Wu? However you say that. What's up, Latonya? What's up, Callie? What's up, Love and Light? What's up, Rael? So what's good? What's good? What's up? What's up? What's up? We at with it. I got on these shades, so I gotta get all close and shit. What's up? What is it? Lively Living. There we go. What's the deal? What's the deal? So we got quite a bit of people in here already, so let's not waste any time. So before I even get into the origins, let me actually answer the question that was posed to me. So the original question that was posed, can ladies be pimps? And if not, why not? Why not? So let me answer it like this. We have to properly define what a pimp is before we can go into whether a woman or a man can be that. Let me turn this down a little bit. So we have to go into what is a pimp. So let's go there first. The word started to come into use in the 1600s, but it doesn't have a known origin, right? It has no known origin. However, it popped up in France. So it comes from the French. It's a French word, essentially, right? From the 1600s. And the definition of this French word was to define a man that dressed eloquently or seductively. A well-dresser, someone who dresses nice. And this essentially, we still see that to this day, right? So the pimp was always connected to their ability to be charming, to be able to charm, right? It wasn't until later that it became a derogatory term. So originally, it wasn't a negative thing because that was the culture. So nobody saw an issue with it. Let me also make this clear. Prostitution is only illegal in cities that have more than 400,000 people. That is the actual law. So in cities with more than 400,000 people, it's not, it is legal with people more than that, but people under cities that have less than 400,000 people, it's not illegal. So they getting it in, right? So this was never about moralism. This was never about whether this is right or wrong, good or bad, because that's just not how the law works. The law is, okay, if there's too many people in the city, you can't do this. Go to a smaller city. That's what the law says. The law doesn't say this shouldn't be done, yada, 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 whatever. So we have to understand how the law works. The law isn't dealing with emotions. The law isn't really dealing with moralism either. Because again, it's not saying that it's right, wrong, good, or bad. Because if it's wrong, it should be legal everywhere at all times, regardless of the situation. But that's not the case. It's only in bigger cities. We pretty much have more than 500,000 people. So if it's less than that, it's free reign. So the term madame or madam didn't come into usage to 1719, and that was referred to a prostitute. So the word madame, making reference to a prostitute, came about in 1719. However, we know that the madams is like the manager of the brothel, right? That's what we're more so used to, right? But that didn't come along till 1871, right? So in 1871, that's when the madame was being referred to as the manager of a brothel. So we see that that's almost 300 years before, well, after pimp was, in common language in the 1600s. So madame didn't refer to a brothel manager to literally almost 30 years before the 1900s. So the word pimp was already in usage for almost 300 years before that. So just that alone should dispel any myths about what it really is and what it is not. Because honestly, because madame was a prostitute first, meaning it was 100 years, it was a full 100 years before this word was referred to a manager of a woman. Before then, it was a prostitute. And the reason that is because to be a true madame, you had to rise up in the ranks. A true madame actually worked her way up to her rank and her position. This is also referred to as the bottom bitch in the pimp game. They call her the bottom bitch. The bottom bitch's responsibility is to teach and train the other women in the stable. But she was trained personally by the pimp. The pimp put it in her to be what she is. Then she embodying the bottom bitch. And why is it the bottom bitch? We're going to get into that later on in the video. But just to make these terms clear so that there's no confusion here. So a true madame rose up in the ranks because she was taught by a P. There was no woman who just magically came out of the essence and she just knew the game. Where was you going to learn the game from? But now we have to deal with this. This is the next thing we have to deal with. The next thing we have to deal with is some women may feel, that they don't have to go through the ranks. Some women may feel, okay, if I have a smart enough mind to, to put this business together, like an escort business, so on and so forth, to literally be a manager of women. Like I don't need to go, through the ranks. I just have to utilize my mind. So in today's times, we have a lot of that going on. There's still a lot of brothels, still in effect to this day because it's not illegal in certain places. Okay. So the whole thought of a madame, being a madame without having to raise up in the ranks or to not be taught and trained by a P, comes 300 years later. So just to make that clear, so before 1871, madame, there was no such thing as a madame, meaning a manager of a brothel. Now, this is also what we have to understand, where the Pimpin and the Hoin, they have separate origins, even though they work together. And this is why I'm going into the pimp and the Hoin. But in order to understand the origins, now we have to go into what does prostitute mean? Right? Let's go into the etymology of prostitute. Because remember, madame, before it was a madame, in 1719, she was a prostitute. So what does a prostitute mean? So let's take it a step further. Prostitute has been in usage since the 1520s. So that actually, that was around before the word pimp. Okay. What does it mean? If we break down the word, pro means before, prostitute, pro means before, then stu means to establish, to make firm. Right? So let's add it all up. Pro means before, then stu means to come into existence or to establish, to cause to stand, to cause something to stand. So because it's pro, before, so you're causing something to stand beforehand. What is that even talking about? What it's talking about is that before, or that pro means before creation or before something. In this instance, we're talking about the underworld, because I've been speaking about the underworld a lot anyway. So it means from the underworld, and from the underworld you cause something to stand. So it's like using dark energy to build up from the earth, because we know whenever you're dealing with power, you're dealing with demons. Whenever you're dealing with demons, you're dealing with the underworld, and the underworld allows you to build from the ground up. So because prostitute means essentially before the underworld, before the light, it was the darkness. So it means the darkness. The origins are from the darkness, and from the darkness they stand. Okay. So again, let me take my time through this, because again, this has never been done before. Now again, people talk about it here and there, but they're not gonna really break it down like this technical. We're gonna get pretty technical. We're giving out dates and all that, so anybody can go back and do their own research. So you don't have to take my word for it. Don't take it on face value. I'm gonna give you things to research if you so choose. Let's continue. Now, prostitute also means to expose publicly. Public exposure. And we don't have to get into details with that. We know what that is all about. Now, we also understand that it's another word for prostitute, and that word is whore. Because the hoin, or the hoe, we know that that's like slang for whore. Right? So before you had the hoe, you had the whore. But what are the origins of that word? Let's see right here. That is from the 1530s. So prostitute is from the 1520s. Whore is from the 1530s. So you see, they actually have a very close origin. Right? So what does that mean? What is a whore? A whore is an adulteress. A woman willing to fornicate, to commit sin. Right? So on and so forth. Whore also, it can be hora. Hora. And we know a hora is talking about time, like the horas of the planets and all that, the cycles. So hora is speaking about cycles. Well, see, now we're going to take it to the cosmic. So whore not only means adulteress, fornicator, a woman who's willing to go into the underworld, who's willing to go beyond the contrast, go beyond the law, to navigate in the underworld, to do those deeds. So because it's also hora, the hora is the cycles of a time period, or time is cycles. Like the body has various cycles. Like you have a brand new body every 7 years. So it takes 7 years to fully, reestablish your body naturally. You don't have to think about it. This is already innate. The intelligence is already there. Right? So let me see. So let me make sure y'all can hear me clearly. Okay, we good? All right. Let us continue. So we understand whore is also talking about a cycle of time, or cycles of time. And we know that women are controlled by what? I don't want to say control, but women are highly influenced by what? The moon. Lunar energy. And we know that the moon is about cycles. You know, that's why it's all about the full moon, the new moon, the crescent moon, so on and so forth. We know that that is a symbol of feminine energy or yin energy. So we're speaking about yin energy. So a whore is dealing with the cycles of the yin energy or cycles of the moon, like the menstrual cycle, right? There we go. See, when we connect the dots, it all comes together. But let us take it a step further. Now, another, we also have, you know, the whore of Babylon in the book of Revelations, right? The whore of Babylon, who is pretty much the queen of abominations, right? All things considered wrong, all things considered immoral, all things that are forbidden, all things that are taboo, so on and so forth. You know, the whore of Babylon. So she is the embodiment or the symbol of all things that are abnormal or abominations, right? She is the queen of the forbidden, the queen or the adulteress of all things underground. And she came to the surface in the book of Revelation. So now she has been established. The underworld has been established physically. Now you can bear witness to it. But let's take it a step further. We ain't done just yet. There's an even older word. So before it was whore, so we got prostitute, we got whore, but before it was whore, it was harlot, Harlot, the harlots, right? What does harlot mean? Harlot has been around since the 1200s. So now we're going back even further, 300 years. Now we're dealing with the 1200s. Harlot means the howling, like a wolf. Let's take it a step further. So harlot is not even gender based. A harlot can be a man or a woman. It just means howling. And we know who howls? Wolf. The wolf howls. What makes the wolf howl? The full moon. The wolves howl at the full moon. So when the moon is full, the wolves howl. And the prostitute or the whore or the harlots are called the she-wolves. A prostitute is a she-wolf. Some people even call her a demon. Let's take it a step further. Harley, like Harley, H-A-R-I, means army. An army. Army of what? Well, we just have established the army of the wolves, the she-wolf, that is influenced by the cycles of the moon or the lunar energy or the yin energy. This is why, this is the whole thing of the moon. You know, like with the full moon, people transforms into wolves. That's just them embodying their yin energy, the feminine energy, right? So again, excuse the background noise. It's literally construction right across the street. So I'm going to make sure if anybody has any hard time hearing me, I will have no problem speaking louder. So if there's any problems with the audio, just let me know and we can keep it going. Let's take it a step further. Now, the pimpin originates in America, at least, in New Orleans. The pimpin comes from New Orleans. But let's take it a step further. We understand that New Orleans is located along the Mississippi River, right? New Orleans is located along the Mississippi River. We understand that the Mississippi River mimics the Nile River in Egypt. Like they're literally, you look at the Nile River, you look at the Mississippi River, one and the same. So we understand that Egypt in the west is going to come from the Mississippi River. So when we go to New Orleans, along the Mississippi River, now what's so special about New Orleans? Now we got to go into the history of New Orleans. So again, let me make sure that everybody is okay, cool. Just making sure I can be heard. So now we have to go into the history of New Orleans in order to truly understand this. Now let us continue. So the flag of New Orleans, the New Orleans flag, if you look up the New Orleans flag, it's a symbol there. That is a symbol for Orzuli. Or, and we know this is going into voodoo. Or Zuli. Or Zuli is considered the sacred whore. The sacred whore. What is the sacred whore? The sacred whore, or the temple whore, meaning the whore within the temple. So before the prostitution was in the streets, it was going on in the temples, as they call brothels, right? A brothel temple. So before it was in the streets, before it bled out into the streets, because the brothels was, under attack, it was happening in the temples. So the Hoin was going on within the temples. Why? Because it was a part of the culture. So I know it's taboo, forbidden now, but you go back in time, you go back to the 1200s, this is just free reign. Nobody looked at this as something that should not be occurring. The mindset was completely different at these times. So we're just like brushing your teeth. You may have a woman in the bed, give her the money, yada, yada, yada. It was just a way of life. Nobody saw an issue with it. The women were getting paid, the men were getting satisfied, even exchange. No problem. So because the New Orleans flag is a symbol of Orzuli, who is considered the sacred whore, another thing that makes her sacred is because she remains pure. So she can deal with hundreds and thousands of men. You can say, a real true to the game hoe probably has dealt with thousands of men in their career. What makes Orzuli the sacred whore is no matter how many men or women that she deals with, she is never polluted by their energies and all this stuff, right? The very thing that everybody today is afraid of. Well, I'm not going to do that. I'm not in that life. I'm not trying to catch no diseases and deal with bad, toxic, negative energy. Everything that most people are afraid of, which is why they stay away from this, as they should, because you have to be of a certain mindset to stay pure in a dangerous lifestyle. So it's boundaries set up on purpose. It's supposed to be a stigma with the pimping and the Hoins. It's supposed to be viewed as negative. It's supposed to keep majority of the people outside, because if you seeing it from the internal perspective, it will change your mentality. It just has that type of effect on you. But let us continue. So she was the sacred whore because it does not matter how many men or women she deals with, she does not take on their energy and she doesn't take on their disease. She is able to remain transparent in who and what she is. So she remains pure. That's why she is the sacred whore. And again, this is from the voodoo. And we know that comes from New Orleans. But let's take it a step further. New Orleans is also considered the Crescent City. New Orleans is also called the Crescent City, and we know that also deals with the moon. And we just broke down what the horrors are, the cycles of the moon. So then again, we see a even deeper connection. And we know whenever we're dealing with the moon, we're dealing with Sin, like Sin City, Las Vegas. Sin is a lunar deity, the father of Ishtar. Ishtar is the energy of Venus, like the bimbos in California, the whores in California. Those are the Ishtars. That's why, you go to Hollywood and Highland, there's a big ass Ishtar's gate. Ishtar's gate, the gate of the sacred whore, the womb of the whore. Right? Motherfuckers know what they're doing. So, because Sin is the father of Ishtar, we know that, this is where the pimping comes from. The father of the Hoin is the pimping. But we're going to go a step further. Now, when we first started the video, we understand that these words, all of these words actually come from the French language. And we know, we go to the history of New Orleans, it has a French connection. What is that French connection? Let's go into it. Because, also with New Orleans, they have the things like the Mardi Gras. That's just their culture, right? The Creole community, the Creoles, like all this is, but let's get into it. Let's not just speak about it. Let's get into the facts. So New Orleans is also considered the most unique city in the United States. So New Orleans is the most unique city. Why is it the most unique city? Because it's cross-cultural and it's multilingual. It's a cross-cultural, multilingual city. Why? Because it was established, New Orleans was established by French colonists in 1718. So in 1718, New Orleans was established or founded by the French colonists. So they came from France to New Orleans. So there was always a connection between France and New Orleans, which is why these words all have French origins. Because so that French culture came to New Orleans. Now let's not get it mistaken. Like when I say French culture, it's not talking about white culture. It's talking about the Moors, because we understand that the Moors were dominating Europe from 700 to 1400. So they laid down the foundation of what Europe was, because prior to the Moors coming into Europe, Europe was going through a dark age. They were going through the dark age. Just do the history. Go type in Europe dark age. They were going through the dark age. What brought Europe out of the dark ages is when the Moors came into Europe and rebuilt it, allowed it to stand firm. So with the Moors, and it wasn't just Muslims, Christians, it was like the modern day Egypt. People were coming from all over the world with their knowledge, and they were, putting it all into one big alchemical pot. And it created a portal to open up these. Actually, I'll get into that a bit later. Let me lay a little bit more foundation before we start talking about portals and all that, because again, I don't want to go into spooky shit, and we don't want to get it off track like it's spiritual when it's not practical. We're going to merge both worlds together. So let us continue. So New Orleans was once the territorial capital of French. In other words, how do I put this? Okay, New Orleans was purchased by the U.S. in 1803. So we'll start there. So New Orleans was founded in 1718, but it was purchased by the U.S. in 1803. So that's almost 100 years before the U.S. owned New Orleans, specifically Louisiana, a lot of Louisiana, if not all of it. So it was almost a full 100 years of that French culture coming into New Orleans is why it's the most, cultural place in the U.S. because of that French connection. And then when you go to the French, you're talking about the entirety of Europe and Spain. But we also have to make this clear that it was first the Kingdom of France from 1718 to 1763. Then it was the Kingdom of Spain. So it started off as the Kingdom of France. Then it became the Kingdom of Spain in 1763, all the way to 1802. Then it was bought by the U.S. in 1803. Right? And it was, it was from 1802 to 1803, I believe it was the first republic for like 1 year. Then the U.S. bought it in 1803. There's also a city in France called Orleans. Like there's a city in France called Orleans, which is southwest of Paris. Now we have to go into Paris, because we know if you go to Paris, Paris has the largest catacomb on the planet. If you type in Paris catacombs, there's a whole underground structure of nothing but bones. They estimate it's about 6 million bodies in that underground tomb called a catacomb in Paris, France. The real underworld, meaning that is the biggest catacomb on the planet, in Paris, France, in the underworld, the underground. So somebody built this amazing structure under the ground and was just filling up bodies. That opened up a portal to the underworld, because it's essentially the largest graveyard on the planet in Paris, France. So this is a portal to the underworld. Then you got the Eiffel Tower, which was built in the 19th century. And again, we always talk about the 19th century. This is the century of the occultists. So the Eiffel Tower was built in the century of the occultists. People who understood the underworld and the underground. So let's bring it full circle now. When we bring it full circle, this is the French connection. This is why pimp, madame, prostitute, harlot, most of these words are French, because of the French connection. And again, the French connection just means the Moorish connection, when the Moors resurrected not just France, not just Paris, not just Spain, but the entirety of Europe. Right? That's why, pimps and Moors are kind of one and the same, if you really want to, be real. So that, because Europe was the powerhouse of the world at one time, you had everything happening there. So when it came to the U.S., the first stop was New Orleans. So New Orleans had all of that knowledge, wisdom, and understanding from the people. Why? Because who was teaching the colonizers? The black man. The black man was teaching the colonizers how to navigate, how to get here and there, the language, the occult. It was all taught by the ones who laid down the foundation. So it's essentially black culture, just in Europe, the origins of Europe. And before it was Europe, it was Egypt, so on and so forth. Greece, Rome, Egypt, Greece, Rome, so on and so forth. This is all black culture, originally occupied by black people. And again, we're just using these terms loosely. Okay? So, I think that does justice. So let me just do a quick recap so we can lay this to bed, lay this to sleep. So anybody who wanted to know the origins, so I gave you the spiritual perspective, about the she-wolf. The prostitute is a she-wolf, influenced by the lunar energy, by the yin energy. And this is why when I speak about Pambagira, who was what? The vampire. So prostitutes, hoes, harlots are vampires, male or female, vampires from the underworld. And the purpose of the vampire is to absorb yang or young energy, which is masculine energy. And pimp breaks down to the number 9, which is the energy of Mars, which is pure masculine energy. So the hoe is literally absorbing the pimp's yin, not the yin energy, the yang energy. And the hoe is giving the pimp the yin energy. It is a even exchange. That's why they go well. So the pimp embodies the yang, the prostitute or the hoe embodies the yin. And they can feed each other because they are both vampires from the underworld, coming from Paris, France, Europe, the largest graveyard on the entire planet. So if you want to do more history about how the fuck did this happen, feel free to do so. Just search Paris catacombs if you want more information about that. So this should lay all this to rest. If you need to watch this video again to study it, everything has been laid out. So unless anybody has any questions now, we will be able to get to them. If I need to make anything more clear. So to answer the question, can ladies be pimps? I think you got the answer. Because we understand the pimp represents the masculine, the hoe represents the feminine. So yes, can madams manage over women, manage over escorts? Absolutely. Oh yeah, I didn't speak about the bottom bitch. There we go. Well, now that I laid it down, this is why it's called the bottom bitch, because the bitch from the underworld, the she-wolf from the underworld, the underground. That's why the pimp said, this is my bottom bitch, my main bitch. Because he rooted her in the underworld, charged her up with the energy, and she can do the same for the other women. This is how she's able to navigate the streets, protected spiritually and physically. Because she is literally navigating through the underworld, because she is rooted in the underworld. There's a process you have to go through, or an initiation, to be initiated into the underworld or the underground. And again, this is why I'm always talking about the underworld, the underground, demons, so on and so forth. This is a cultural thing, originated in Paris, France. All right? Gosh. So I'm gonna light this up. So if you have any questions, feel free to type them while I spark up. So give me a minute to spark up. So I guarantee ain't nobody laid it out like that. Ain't nobody laid it out like that. You got the spiritual connection, the physical connection, and the etymology and the history, all in 30 minutes. There you go. Hold on. 1 second here. Would you be interested in visiting New Orleans? You already know. You know, that's where the underworld is, right? The home of the voodoo. So of course, you know, you wanna visit the underworld, you know, go to New Orleans. If you too far away from France, then you know New Orleans opened up those portals to the underworld as well. So you know that's the home of the underworld. All right. I appreciate the $2 donation from Killer Boy Wood. I appreciate that, homie. You know what I mean? Appreciate it. Let's see where we at. What's up, Brianna? What's the deal? What's the deal? So again, you know, I didn't want to make this too complex. So yes, this isn't the full story, but this should give you enough to point you in the right direction if you truly want to study this from the origins, if you truly want to understand this game, if you truly want to understand the streets, if you truly want to understand the underworld. Now you can truly understand it, so it doesn't have to be a mystery anymore. It doesn't have to be a mystery. It doesn't like, oh, where does this come from? Is it right? Is it wrong? Is it good or bad? This is a part of the culture, whether you like it or not. This is just the underworld, the fourth dimension. The fourth dimension is the underworld. I just spoke about it yesterday. In the 4 Aeons Part 2, I just spoke about it. The Aeon Set. To fuse the underworld with the spiritual information, to fuse the fourth dimension with the fifth dimension, to fuse the east and the west. That's why it originated in Europe and it came to the west. It's the fusion of the fourth dimension and the fifth dimension. Right? And again, I apologize for the technical terms. Or the spiritual terms, or, you know, going into mythology and all that, the Ishtar. But, you know, this is more so for the advanced minds who like all this technical information, you know, who can truly decode it, right? So, yeah, exactly that. The movie, if you want to see a movie about the Paris catacombs, there's a movie called As Above, So Below. So type in As Above, So Below. It took place in Paris, France, and it gives you, so it's not just a movie, it's also giving you a lot of historical references as well. So if you truly want to see the Paris catacombs, watch the movie As Above, So Below. You can get it on YouTube, you know, the Hulus, or, you know, whatever, the Netflix, whatever you got, you know what I mean, $2.99, $3.99, you know, definitely get some game. All right, peace, God. What's up, Harmony? What's the deal? So I see a lot of y'all getting in here late. We done already laid down the game, so we just chilling now, just answering the questions. Yeah, definitely. You know, so we paying respect to the ancestors. We paying respects, you know, to the underworld. At least that's what I do. I'm not saying what you do, but when I smoke, you know, it's always an honor to the underworld. You know. So yeah, I'm probably the only person ever to lay it down with the physical, spiritual, and mental planes. You know, but again, it's not for me to, it's not to get egotistical about it. It's just to, you know, I feel honored to be able to bring about true information. You know, and it's going beyond, you know, the religious thought of. You know, religion tells you everything before religion was demonic and evil, right? What exactly is the underworld you refer to? The fourth dimension. The underworld is the fourth dimension. That's what the underworld is. That's why in America, or the Western Hemisphere, it's all about the underworld. It's all about demons. It's all about Satan. You go to the Eastern Hemisphere, you know, China, Asia, Japan, Tibet. It's all about ascension, and you know, because they go up in the mountains and they meditate in the highest apex of the mountains. You know, because I believe the highest elevated point on the earth is in Tibet, so that's why it's the crown chakra. So if we're talking about the underworld, we're talking about the root chakra, which is in California or the Western Hemisphere. And that's why we're dealing with the underworld, because that's what the fourth dimension is. And the fourth dimension is America. Or not just, when I say America, North America, Central America, and South America, the whole shit. All right? So there we go. So we are in the underworld if you're in the Western Hemisphere. Are we so-called black people from the underworld? Or color has nothing to do with it? We are absolutely from the chaos. We are absolutely from the stars. We are absolutely from the nothingness. And we are the living animations of that nothingness. So yes, so the underworld is the chaos realm. Absolutely. And this is why we are just able to do things other people cannot do. You know, we are able to truly navigate in the chaos realms, which most people are afraid of. Why? Because religion put it in your head that you're supposed to be afraid of hell and the chaos realm. But this is actually our home. We are able to navigate this gracefully. We can navigate the hellish realms gracefully. We're not tormented like other people. Other people may work with demons or bad spirits, and they start getting tormented, seeing things. They get tormented because their origins don't go back far enough. Their origins don't go back into the underworld. So when your origins go back into the underworld, you are able to navigate in those realms, because now it's like you're amongst your peers. You're amongst your peers versus, you feel like a foreigner. So the underworld isn't foreign to us, so we can navigate it. So this is why, the streets is nothing to us. We're able to survive and just do things regardless of the oppression, regardless of the system. We're still able to navigate the chaos realm and still make things happen. Because we're not bound or limited to the illusionary realm. Other people may be in their thinking. They may have limited themselves because due to their religion or their political connections, so on and so forth. They may have limited themselves to a box. But we are constantly expanding. We're constantly evolving, changing form. Because the chaos, and when I say chaos, if we want to get technical or scientific, I'm talking about the carbon. And carbon is forever changing its form. It is the purifier. When you want to purify things, they are purified through carbon. If you want to purify water, most water filters have carbon. It's the carbon that purifies. It extracts all things that are impure and leaves the pure. The body does the same thing with urine therapy. Urine therapy is essentially when you drink fluids, your body extracts all of the things that are not pure. So when you urinate it out, you're literally urinating out the purest aspects of what you drunk, because the body went through the filtration process, because the body is the most advanced technology. This is why, when people are still kind of thrown aback by urine therapy, because they're still under the illusion of the body doesn't heal itself. The body heals itself, just period. So if you want to get into yourself, if you want to heal yourself, this is how you do it, through the urine therapy. It takes you back to the purest aspect of yourself. So it's not enough just to drink water. It's not enough to be healthy. It's not enough to have your diet on point. It's not enough to be in the gym. That's just the surface. That's dealing with the surface, which is fine. But if you're talking about dealing with the deepest subconscious levels of the mind, the Osiris, the El Cristo Negro, the king of the underworld, the king of the subconscious mind, the king of the deepest chambers of thought, the carbon, the things that cannot be measured or observed, the most advanced mathematics. Everything is mathematics. It just gets more and more advanced the deeper you go into the underworld or the chaos realm or the carbon. It gets more and more and more advanced. Because we are naturally mathematically advanced, this is why we're able to do things in the living world. So for example, we may have a hard time with school and technical knowledge because that's not how we learn. We learn in real time. So we're just better at doing things in real time versus some other people may be better at sitting in the classroom and learn to sit, putting a big ass book in their face and just going page to page to page to page to page. Some people are just there. That's just how they learn. Because if you don't have a connection to the real world, then of course you got to learn from secondary experiences. But when you can just go out and experience in real time, this is advanced mathematics. When you can actually see your thoughts materialize right before you. materialize, dematerialize, and you know how to dissolve problems and create problems. And when I say problems, I'm talking about mathematics. I'm talking about mathematical equations. You can pose mathematical equations to yourself and then solve them in real time. And this translates to making the proper decisions, being able to be at the right place at the right time, tapping into those synchronistic moments. All this is advanced mathematics. And all this is truly experienced in the underworld, in the fourth dimension. You have to go deep into the earth. That's why in the movie As Above, So Below, they was like 1,000 feet beneath the earth. And all type of shit is happening mentally. Because your mind becomes alive the deeper you go into the earth. The less influence the less influence the collective consciousness has on you, the more your mind materializes. So if you were to go into the earth, pretty much the equivalent to going to Devil's Gate, because that's, Devil's Gate, you're going like 50 feet into the earth. The further and further you get away from civilization, now your mind starts to become more alive, because you don't have that gravitational pull pulling you down and weighing you down. You actually start to naturally ascend. So there we go. Exactly, universe B, right? Bringing into existence universe B, absolutely. There you go. Yeah, so I see a lot of people in the comment section, they're giving a lot more references. So all good, you know what I mean? So for anybody who want to do future references that I'm not mentioning, you got the people in the comment section, or the chat room, not the comment section, the chat room. They're giving you even more references, because I don't know everything. So as I'm speaking, they're like, oh, it's an anime show that talks about that, or it's a documentary that talks about that. So there you go. So you got even more references. You know what I mean? So this is why we deal with people that's intelligent. So although I don't know it all, there are people that know things I don't know, and there you go. Even more references. This is how we build up and help each other grow and develop properly. This is what I'm talking about. So this is what I'm saying. This isn't like an introduction, like, hey, this is what you need to do with your life. This is just to understand the principles and the concepts of understanding what you see when you see it. So when you are seeing things that are considered unruly or underground or illegal, whatever you want to call it, instead of casting judgment, you're like, okay, I know what this is. So it doesn't affect you. Like, I know exactly what this is. This isn't something mysterious or something I don't understand, something that I have an abrasion to. You completely understand what you are seeing. And when you understand what you see, now you can manipulate it or not. You can get deeper into the inner layers of reality. Remember, take nothing on face value. Life is very multi-dimensional. It has various layers to it. There's at least 7 layers to life at all times. There's even more, but as you get more advanced, you see more. But it's always, you got 7 colors, 7 chakras. We know that the number 7, the number of God. So there's 7 layers of reality at all times, minimum. So to be aware of all 7 layers of that reality, that puts you into a different mindset. Let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. So let's just say you walk into a building and the address of this building is 2500. 2500. Okay, we know 2 plus 5 is 7. So when going into this building, the gravitational pull, this building will be under the influence of the energy of 7, or the consciousness of 7, the intelligence of 7, the mathematical equation of 7. And we know, this is it's like a dojo. Like when you walk into a temple, it's like it's very pure. It's the dark side of the moon, the K2, the dark side of the moon. So it's like walking into a temple, walking into, a church, a holy place, like walking into a holy place. So you already know coming in, like you may see some very rare items, antiques, things that you don't want to touch, things that are very special and valuable. It's like you're in a museum. It's like being in a museum. So you already know this coming into it. So now you have connected numerology. You connected that with astrology, because you know that that's K2, right? So you understand the principles of that and everything that entails the headless body. K2 represents the headless body. So pretty much the ego has been dissipated. So now the only thing that's left is the headless body, the intelligence of the body. It's pretty much releasing your ego and allowing the body to do what it does best, which is to heal. So instead of us having all these blockages and limitations in our mind, again, such as urine therapy, that's why, this is nothing new. But people still have an abrasion to it. Even if you say, okay, they've been doing it since ancient times, like this is nothing new. People didn't just think about this yesterday. And, now you just got people drinking their own urine. Or you can trace it back to a very old culture. However, that's still not enough for people to get over the fact, they still have an abrasion towards it, even if you literally have the scientific and technical information and various people's testimonies to verify that this is exactly what it say it is. But still, religion, tradition, organizations, institutionalization of the mind, literally, like, even if you hear the truth, you know the truth, you see the truth, you still have an abrasion towards it. You still create an excuse in your mind as to why you shouldn't do it. At least not to, even if you don't make it a habit in life, to see that it do what it says it do. And I'm just using that as an example. It could be any example. Any science, any occult science, any form of divination, any form of alchemy, any form of astrology, so on and so forth. So when we bring the alchemy, so boom, we notice astrology. Now we bring the alchemy into the picture. So now that when you walk into the building, now you already are armed with what type of mentality you need to have, or what type of spirit you need to get into in order to successfully navigate through this atmosphere. So when you enter into this building, you have entered into an atmosphere, vapors of unseen energy and intelligence that all radiate or have the number 7 in common. So you're going to see various manifestations of 7, but it's going to be so vast. You like the common denominator. So this is essentially what you're doing. You just know the common denominator that everything within this atmosphere has. You're going to see various perspectives and various everything's going to be colorful and graceful. Everything's going to be very diverse. You're going to see much diversity, but they all are going to have the energy of 7 as the common denominator. This is what links everything together. So you have that in your mind. This is the common link between all of these things. So now that you understand the common link, when you navigate, like you tap into the alchemy, now you're tapping into yourself. So now you connected with the stars from above, the numbers from below. The heavens and the earth are one. So now you being the apex, not the apex, the center of all this, the microcosm of the macrocosm. Now, as you know, like, okay, my thoughts have to all be geared towards that frequency. And because my thoughts are now all geared towards this frequency, because I know what this frequency is, the frequency of the number 7, because my thoughts are geared towards this frequency, now I can literally materialize events, people, and places and all that. I can materialize things in this atmosphere because now I know how to manipulate the atmosphere. So now that you have identified the atmosphere, now you seek to manipulate the atmosphere. Now you're going through like, okay, let's just say you wanted to know a certain type of knowledge. Because you're like, all right, the people in here probably are well studied. They see things a little bit deeper than the average. So you like, okay, let me pose certain questions to people. Let me just walk up to people and, let me just kind of throw something out there and see if they catch on to it. Or let me just throw out the name of a deity or a name of a culture. Or let me just throw some type of spiritual term or something out there just to see if they bite it. Right? And of course, because this is the atmosphere, they're going to catch on. Even if they don't necessarily know about it in depth, they're not necessarily going to be it's not going to throw them off, essentially. They will actually be more open to the discussion than usual. So, again, the atmosphere is influencing the minds of the people that are occupying that atmosphere. So you have the collective soul, or the oversoul. Then you have the avatars, or the extinctions of that oversoul. I had a hard time saying that. You have the collective, then you have the extensions of the collective. So because the minds, because man means mind, So every time you see a being, you're seeing a mind, a projection of a mind. So that mind is a extension of that oversoul. So once you understand that the intelligence or the consciousness of the oversoul, now you understand the extensions. So because you understand the extensions, I'm not gonna say the word no more. Now you can, like, okay, let me pose it. Let me manipulate the mind. Let me pose certain questions to the mind. Let me engage in certain type of conversations. Let me, you just know how to deal with the people there. You know how to deal with the people there. So you essentially know what game is being played. That's a good example. You know what game is being played when you enter into this atmosphere. So because you are gamed up, now you know how to play your hand. So you have observed the game. Now you are playing because you have entered into the game as well. So now you know how to play your hand. And as you go through, making deals and negotiations with the people, it's like you are engaging in combat, you are engaging in trade, negotiation, you're engaging. So it's friction being created as the minds are engaging, as you are communicating, it's friction being generated. Energy, the masculine, the feminine, everything is bouncing and dancing and communicating with each other. So you're building up energy, you're building up, this person, that person, this. So let's just say you talk to 100 people. You go through, you talk to 100 people, then boom, you didn't gain experience. Now you can sit back and reflect on, I see what worked, I see why it worked, I see what didn't work, and I know why it didn't work. So then you start to focus on the things that did work. And as you start to perfect the things that did work, now it becomes a way of life. So your way of life is now based on the methodology that does work, or the mathematical equations that you have tried and tested for yourself. So you've seen it and you know it. You have been in the game. You know the game. You've been in the game. So now you got game by your reflections and the interactions. So that becomes your thinking process. That becomes the crystallized thoughts in your mind, the dominant thoughts. And when they become dominant thoughts, now all of your energy can be projected and concentrated in one direction. So now the energy isn't scattered. See, the energy is like scattered when you're going through it, that trial and error period. The energy is real scattered, right? Because you're just going in the game. You're just figuring everything out. It's like learning how to swim. You start off like this, but now that you become graceful with it, it can be directed. So now you know how to go north, south, east, west. You know how to do everything. So you get in the spirit now. You can move with the spirit because now you really don't have to think about it anymore, because you know it from an external perspective and an internal perspective. So now you can literally release everything and start to move with the spirit. Now the spirit can start to communicate with you and take you to more advanced levels that the books couldn't take you through, and the interactions with the people couldn't take you to. So now you start building up the relationship with spirit. So now when you start building up the relationship with spirit, and you start receiving that occult and that hidden information to expand, your sense of the game and your place in it, and how to manipulate it, how to get done, how to build on top of it. Now you can essentially create your own game within that bigger game. Now you have the mathematics to create your own game in that bigger game. So now you play on your own game, because that you understand the rules, the laws, and the regulations of the grander game, and you have figured out by the spirit has transmitted the necessary information to you to create your own game within this bigger game. So now you are the ruler of your own game. You are the oversoul of your own game. So now when people engage with you, now they're playing your game. People are curious. People want to always try new things and try new games. So they may be, I play this game every day. Like I go to work, come home, go to work, come home, go to work, come home. But then you may meet somebody while going through the game that you are playing, who may challenge you to a new type of game. Most of the time, these are considered like synchronistic moments, so on and so forth. So now when people engage in you. Now they're playing your game that you have built and designed. Now they're testing their skills with the game that you built and designed. Now you're engaging in a different type of game altogether. So it's building you up in a different way now when you engage in people, because now they're coming. They will come to you and engage in your game, and when you come to them, now they're engaging in your game, because you have opened yourself up to the spirit. Now you operating on you using advanced technology now, and you building up that energy exchange. So now it's a whole different type of build-up of energy exchange happening on this level of consciousness. And as you continue to build, and concentrate that energy, now you can direct it and penetrate into deeper realms of consciousness. As you build up, you just gaining, you get more and more advanced in your mathematics, more and more advanced, more and more advanced, more and more advanced. And you know, the sky's the limit. The sky's the limit. So there we go. You know. So we laid this down for the history, you know, of the game, you know, my dedication to it, you know, to all those in the underworld, regardless of what path you may be upon, you know, take this lesson and extend your game. And then we ended at that. So y'all take it easy. Peace.